add some more here, maybe that one. So this is just a crescendo from softest to loudest on numbers 1 through 4. And
So when would you use one? What kind of hymns, or is that would be prelude?
yeah, I would think it could be a prelude or a soft hymn, like a sacrament hymn. And if you have a second verse, it's a little louder. So I would work for those. And then 4 might be kind of a medium loud hymn. Something like that. And if we add a few more, we'll go up to number 5. And then 6 will add even a little bit more. And 7 would probably be our loudest. So I'll play a chord and just progress up those. So that goes 1 through 7 there.
Okay. When would you use 7?
7 might be at the end of a big hymn like this. Something like that. Yep.
So you've left 8.
Yeah. 8's empty. 7 was plenty big, I think.
Do you want to do a lovely solo prelude or postlude on 8? Or
We could do that on it, yeah. So the accompaniment for that would be on the great, on the celeste. We could do...
and that was stop 8.
Yeah, that's piston number 8 right there.
Or piston
Yeah.
number 8. Thank you for clarifying that. So now, I don't think that you did a demonstration of number 3. You went 1, 2, and then 4. But
Oh, did I?
3,
It'll be right between 2 and 4 in volume.
okay. Do you always play with the pedal, the swell, all the way depressed?
Typically, that helps the sound be more clear. That lets the pipe speak out more clearly. But
Do you use the crescendo?
I personally don't, because as one opens it, you don't know what stops you have on. You just have
Yeah.
a light. So I prefer to know what I have on.
Uh-huh.
But it can be useful. Let's say if you're on number 4 and you can't reach a piston, or you can't get some stops by hand, if you open it a little bit by... just a little more volume if you have a free foot. Just depends on if your hands are busy or if your feet are less busy. That's when I would use that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to remember to turn it off.
Right, exactly. Yeah, don't forget your little green lights on, or if you slide off the bench, you'll get this.
So turning the green light off is done by
Closing that pedal.
closing that. Do that again with your foot. And there's a little piston right there, great to pedal,
Yep.
that can be added. And it's visual, so that you can see that he's got a free foot.
And that's useful if you're playing on the swell for maybe something soft. When you move to the great, you need to have your great equal to the pedal. That's how that's useful.
Okay.
But as we saw, if you don't flip it nice and firmly, it will flip itself back up. It's a little touchy, so be aware of that.
Okay. Very good. Do you want to tell us anything about the transposer? It's pretty self-explanatory.
It is, yeah. And that's something that you need to turn off by hand as well. The cancel piston does not affect that. So if you need to play a verse, maybe you're playing for a women's group, so if you want it to be a little bit higher, that would be where you're playing for a soloist. That's where that might come in useful. But just remember, you turn it back down to 0 when you're done playing on the setting, because it doesn't turn itself off by any other means.
Okay, so the things that did not turn themselves off with the cancel button were the crescendo, the transposer, and the
Bass
bass
coupler.
coupler.
Yeah, none of those things are affected by the cancel
Okay.
piston here. That just cancels the stops.
If you turn the organ right off, however, it'll reset to its normal position when you turn it on again.
Okay,
Right.
so turning the organ off will cancel everything.
But that shouldn't be a means to cancel things. Flipping the organ on and off it's hard on the blower. So just turning things off by hand is preferable. But like you said, when you're done playing, those things will reset themselves.
Oh, okay. That's great to know. Is there anything else that we should know to take care of this organ? Like closing the swell pedal or
Actually,
just-
leaving it open when you're not playing is the best thing, so the air can circulate through the pipes, because there are actually wooden swell shutters right there. And if those are left shut during a meeting and the air conditioning comes on, the pipes will go fairly horribly out of tune. So it's best between hymns and when you're sitting not at the organ bench to leave that pedal open.
Thank you. That is very
That's
helpful.
something we often forget to mention on a pipe organ, but it's quite important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else that you want to share with us?
Turn on that pedal light, John.
Oh yeah, the pedal, yeah, I think it's unplugged actually. There is a crank here to raise and lower the bench, and you always want to dismount when you're doing that, because the mechanism isn't built to handle a person sitting on it. So if you need to move it, just step off, crank it up or down. And then once, also if you get to the bottom, you notice the bench is bottomed out. Don't keep cranking, because that can strip out the gears. And I say that because we've had quite a few benches in the church that have met their death that way.
Oh.
So.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
very helpful to know.
And sometimes it's nice, if you come in on a Saturday, it's a little dusty, just give it a wipe down with a nice dry cloth, or if you need a little dampness on the keys on a paper towel, that helps keep it clean. But
Would you suggest that we close it with the
sure,
lid for during the week if people aren't here playing it?
sure. Yeah, but I also think if kids are going to come in and look at the organ, they're going to know to lift it up. So that doesn't typically offer that much protection, but it's a good idea.
So maybe this is the more important thing to remember is
Maybe.
that swell pedal.
Oh, and I forgot to mention the black stop keys too. Those are called couplers, and those are actually quite useful if you play around with them a little bit. So what they do is, if you have stops on the swell and you want to bring them to the stops you have on the grate, swell to grate will add that, and now I'm playing the swell on the grate. But I can also, you'll notice 4 is double 8, so it's going to bring it an octave above. So that's like doing this. 16 is going to be an octave lower, of course, which typically isn't used that much unless we're using maybe the Celeste and playing up higher. And the same thing can be done with the grate stops. If you want an alternative to adding a 4-foot stop to your ensemble here, you can do grate to grate 4, which does this. It's just a way of getting a different color, so if you want to experiment with that, and even on our pistons, numbers 1 and 2, you could add a little more brightness by adding either one of these as an alternative to adding 4-foot stops. So it's a little bit lighter texture. It's just a different color you can experiment with to give some more variation to the sound. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Good.
Thanks so much for coming.
Happy to.